everyone, welcome back to Safe Fitness Training. I'm JG. I want to first apologize for not making a video in 6 months. I've had a few people reach out on the channel and say, hey, when are you going to make a video? Could you make a video? What have you been up to? So I am moving full-time into high-intensity strength training. I'm going to be managing the facility out here in Clear Lake, Texas for the Perfect Workout. Very exciting stuff, and I'm loving it. You know, I'm always going to mention the Perfect Workout in my videos. They're the company that introduced me to Dr. Doug McGuff, Body by Science, this workout, or of course one-on-one training here in a Nautilus studio physically, of course over the internet, be in the safety of your own home. Trainers watching you to make sure that your form is good over Zoom, to make sure that you're safe, of course. That's the main thing about high-intensity strength training. The one thing that I feel is missing from everybody's regimen when they begin a diet or a nutrition plan is having some sort of strength training plan. When we begin to diet or put ourselves into a caloric deficit, what we're basically doing is we're losing weight. When I say weight, you're actually going to end up losing some muscle mass when you go on a fat loss plan, if you do not do strength training when you're dieting. While we're building muscle, we're also losing fat. That's what's missing from most people's nutrition plans. So the most important thing, I'm going to talk about 5 things that I think are most important across the board for most people's genetics when stepping into losing fat. There's a lot of other aspects, so I'm just going to give you the basics. Just going to go over some of these. You could probably guess it. The actual most important thing is nutrition. So 2 things here, exercise and nutrition. Those 2 things are going to be absolutely the things to track first and foremost when you're getting into this. There's so many different nutrition plans out there. You know, there's people that are like, oh, you got to do keto, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I'm not a big fan of all these fad diets. I just don't think that they're complete. I think they leave out very important things like we do need some carbs, right? And so I say low carb, not no carb. I would also consider possibly cutting portions in half if you're going to eat out. This is a big deal for most people. We're just getting too much food. And if we don't want to count calories, which may not even be the most efficient way to do this anyway, we can pay attention to how our body feels. So don't eat until you're full, completely full is a huge recommendation. But keeping a food diary actually is the #1 nutrition tip that's helped me lose more fat than anything else. And I think it's just because otherwise I kind of dial out and I go into almost autopilot mode where I'm not paying attention. Oh, I'm going to eat this, I'm going to eat this. And then before you know it, I'm way over my caloric allowance, right? So this idea of just simply paying attention, that food diary does that for me. So I suggest to clients that first. Start with the food diary. Think about what works for you, because something different for everybody works for them. You know, someone could say, oh, I cannot cut out this amount of carbs. Well, maybe they could do intermittent fasting, because that would still give them a caloric deficit for a certain amount of time. If they can't cut out certain foods, they could cut down the amount they're eating during certain times for sure. Number 3, when we're talking about 5 of the most important things to help you lose fat right now, drink more water, eat more protein. Because protein and water both do something very specific. They satiate our hunger. And so if you possibly can, it is a very good idea to eat your protein before you eat your other foods during your meal, to drink a bunch of water before your meal as well, because then you're full of water. You're not going to be able to eat as much. You're not going to be as hungry. And these things take time. You know, if we're used to eating like double portions, you could all at once just cold turkey it and say, I'm only doing half portions from now on, or you could step down. Everybody has different thresholds of willpower that they could put into this kind of thing. And, you know, I've seen a lot of debates over how much is enough. You know, you want to add a bunch of water, what's the goal here? You want to add a bunch of protein, what's the goal here? For water, you know, Ellington Darden's talked about this for years in high-intensity training. He says a gallon of water a day is your best bet. It may seem a little excessive, but you can work your way up to that. Same thing with protein. The idea is that we want to get 1 pound of protein for each pound of body weight that we have on our bodies. Like I said, that might be excessive. If you're saying, hey, I need 180 grams of protein today, to hit my allowance. At first glance, it seems like an awful lot, but at second glance, it still seems like an awful lot. So typically what I've been doing is I've been telling clients, look, if you can even come close to doubling the amount of protein you have in your diet, you're going to be doing way better than you were before. Now, you're not going to be getting all the muscle mass gain that you possibly could, but you're going to be getting way closer to it. And so just one shake a day of adding protein is good. Adding 2 shakes is better. Adding a chicken breast and a shake is even better, right? Chicken's just a really dense protein with a less fat than a lot of other animal fats, so that's why I suggest eating chicken to people as well. But number 4 of these 5 things that we could step into for fat loss is sleep. And when I say it's not popular, usually busy professionals have a little bit harder time sleeping 8 hours a night like we should than a lot of other people. So this is pretty common for people like professionals to be like, oh, I can't even touch that. I can't even come close to changing my sleep schedule. Well, you may be able to if you can just get a little bit closer to that 8 hours of sleep from 5 hours, then you're going to be doing so much better. Almost half of the people that I talk to who can't make exercise and nutrition really work for their diet plan, for their fat loss plan, those are the folks that they admit they don't get enough sleep, truly. Studies show that when trainees only get 5 hours of sleep for multiple nights in a row, it shows significant drops in metabolism. There are tons of contributors to us getting less sleep. Anything from blue light from cell phones. The idea is to leave those off to the side and not look at your cell phone for an hour before bed. They say any caffeine, but caffeine after noon. Any alcohol, but excessive alcohol is worse, of course. Things like that. I feel like those 3 things are big contributors, probably the most common ones. Being busy is another one, like just feeling like you can't relax. Which brings me to the 5th one, very helpful to de-stress, to raise metabolism. Traditionally, everybody in America is stressed out, right? And nobody seems to have a good way to combat that. They're like, oh, we'll just breathe deep, just relax. And people are like, oh, just relax, and they're all tight and, completely rigid. And they're telling everybody else to relax. And it's like, how do you relax, And you see people, in these meditative stances and these Buddhist temples, and is that relaxing? Not necessarily. So I read this book years ago. This is huge. This is really a huge contributor to being able to sleep better, to be able to get that calm and peace throughout the day. The book was called The Relaxation Response, and it was written by a Christian cardiologist, and he prescribes to his patients 10 minutes a day of deep breathing and purposeful mindfulness to look at each of your muscles and purposefully point to them relaxing. And he suggests that you can incorporate like your spiritual practice with this. Like I said, he's a Christian, and so he's praying when he's doing this, kind of as a meditation. But he, of course, says, this isn't a religious book. This is about lowering blood pressure, being able to sleep better, being able to have relaxation in the body. That's the whole idea. When we breathe really, really deep, it strokes the vagus nerve that runs through our neck, and it allows the entire body to just calm. It lowers the blood pressure for long, long periods of time afterwards. So it does something very similar to high-intensity strength training according to blood pressure. So both of these things, exercise and purposeful stress relaxation, are going to be good for your blood pressure if it's high. Those are really the biggest 5 things that I've come across that keep us from losing fat if we're trying to be on a fat loss plan. Drop some comments down below. Let me know if there's some other things, some tips, some strategies, if there's anything else that you can think of that you can add to this list to help anybody begin losing fat. My biggest recommendation, like I said, start with high-intensity training, finish with nutrition, and then finish with high-intensity training, and then finish with better nutrition, and just continue throughout. So I'm excited about the future, and I'm excited to be in this industry full-time now. and I will see you in the next video. I hope you live a longer life through the power of strength training. See you in about a week. Have a good day.